Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Can we begin the session now?
Yes, Prabhu.
All right. Hare Krishna, everyone. So we welcome you all for today evening Gita Essence program, and we'll be discussing from chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita. So to begin with, I'll start with prayers and start the presentation for all of you to follow the prayers behind. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyattai Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So once again, welcoming you all for Sunday evening session on Gita Essence, which is overview of Bhagavad Gita. And this coursework or this series of seminars are based on the teachings of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So before we get into our today's topic, that is chapter 4, let's do a quick brief recap of chapter 3 that we had discussed yesterday. So the acronym for chapter 3 was TREE, where T stands for Tyaga. So chapter 3 began with Arjuna's inquiry to Krishna, which precisely meant, my dear Lord, you want me to renounce or you want me to work? And Arjuna thought the work that he had to do was a pap karma because he had to fight, he had to kill. So he was thinking that it's a sinful activity. So he was a little confused why Krishna is engaging me into a pap karma, if in case renunciation is better for attaining self-realization. So then Lord Shri Krishna in this context explained what is renunciation, what is the meaning of true renunciation, and we have discussed that elaborately yesterday. And then concluding this section, Lord Shri Krishna had given the definition of karma yoga. Yoga was introduced and Krishna elaborated that Arjuna, you can make your work as a means of success of your life. Success here refers to success in self-realization. Your work can become a yoga, which would become a process of purification of your consciousness, and you will attain God realization. So Arjuna was amazed at this practical approach. However, he had a doubt because karma yoga meant to work without selfish interests. So Arjuna said, my dear Lord, not everyone can work without selfish interests. And what is an alternative for them? When Arjuna thought like that, Lord Shri Krishna responded by explaining the second section of chapter 3, where R stands for rungs on yoga ladder, explaining the yoga ladder. Karma kanda, a stepping stone, then karma yoga, then your jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, and bhakti yoga was explained. When this yoga ladder was explained, then Arjuna thought, oh great, Lord, you said jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga are the higher stages of consciousness or practice of yoga, where people do not have any desires for selfish interest. My dear Lord, I don't have any desires. I don't want to become the king, nor do I want looking for a heaven. So can I go to the forest now? Lord said, no, wait a second, you ain't going to the forest. And then begins the third section where E stands for exemplary. Arjuna, you should act for setting an example for others. So Arjuna thought, my dear Lord, if I need to set an example, what about if I set an example in renunciation? Lord Shri Krishna then said, Arjuna, not everyone, in fact, majority are not qualified to follow the path of renunciation. If they follow you, you may be qualified to take the path of renunciation, but if they follow you, then they would take irresponsible means to fulfill their fulfill their desires like that. So then Arjuna was convinced that Karma Yoga is the best, that he should do it. At that point of time, Arjuna asked, "My dear Lord, I'm totally convinced. However, the experience teaches, despite our determination, over a period of time, our conviction does not stay as it is. We lose enthusiasm after a while. What is the reason for it?" And then it begins the last section of chapter 3, where the last E stands for enemy of the soul, where the discussion about the eternal enemy of the soul, that is lust, happens. How Krishna explains that lust is the eternal enemy, the all-devouring Mahashano Mahapapma, the most fierce enemy, and this enemy of a Jivatma chases after the living entity, life after life. And then Lord Shri Krishna further speaks about how to defeat it. And 3 steps that Krishna explains of defeating lust we had discussed yesterday. And in the concluding verse of chapter 3, verse number 43, Lord Shri Krishna says, "Hey Arjuna, intelligence is higher than mind, mind is higher than senses. If you cultivate transcendental knowledge or spiritual knowledge, with that, your intelligence will become fixed. Your intelligence will become fixed. It will be able to control the mind, which is inferior to intelligence. And then mind will be able to control senses, which is inferior to mind and the grosses." So Lord Shri Krishna concludes chapter 3 by saying, "Arjuna, you can defeat lust if you cultivate spiritual knowledge or transcendental knowledge." So in our course of discussion yesterday, we had given you the essence of Bhagavad Gita, which Srila Prabhupada brings out, and we have given you a 4-step process, ABCD. I hope you all remember the acronym ABCD and what ABCD meant. So we had discussed that. And here at this point of time, however, Lord Shri Krishna only elaborated on the cultivation of transcendental knowledge. With that, chapter 3 concluded. Now, of course, it's an obvious thing. What is the spiritual knowledge? You want Arjuna to cultivate spiritual knowledge. So what is it? With that begins chapter 4, where Lord Shri Krishna now is going to explain Arjuna 2 fundamental questions. Although this chapter is little complicated, little more than complicated. In fact, Krishna himself says in chapter 4 that the concept that I'm about to tell you is very difficult to understand. Still, to make it simple, just remember 2 things which Krishna highlights in this. First, what is transcendental knowledge or spiritual knowledge? And second, how to receive it. Just focus on these 2 points. Of course, I will be going through all the subject matter, but focus on these 2. Don't get caught up with the complications which are described in this chapter with the subject matter, which we'll be introducing just in a while. So, as usual, to begin with our chapter, we'll give the acronym for chapter 4, and then we'll look into the details of chapter 4. So the acronym for chapter 4 is PAST, past. Okay? Because in chapter 4, Lord Shri Krishna is going to discuss the past history of Bhagavad Gita. So remember the acronym with that connection. Past is the acronym for chapter 4, where P stands for position of Lord Shri Krishna in verses 1 to 10. In text 1 to 3, let's start our discussion. So the opening text of chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Shri Krishna gives the past, or rather say, a history of how Lord Shri Krishna had originally established this spiritual education system. You know, like you have this IITs, RACs, and in every college, it all has a history. You know, 1857 में इस जगह पर भूमि पूजन हुआ था, and so college was established. Similarly, here in this chapter, Lord Shri Krishna is explaining how and when the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita was established, where Lord Shri Krishna explains that how he personally had imparted this wisdom of Bhagavad Gita long, long ago to the sun god, a saintly king by the name of Vivaswan. And then the spiritual knowledge was received through disciplic succession. Disciplic succession is a teacher-student relationship. Teacher imparts the knowledge to student. Student applies that knowledge in his life, then realizes that knowledge, and then he instructs other students. Like that, this knowledge is preserved, protected, and carried down through descending process. Like that, this knowledge was protected and provided. However, Krishna says in this verse This disciplic succession in course of time was broken. And now, Arjuna, I am imparting the spiritual knowledge to you again. In other words, it's a very important section, so I'll be spending some time to this discussion on disciplic succession. In other words, transcendental knowledge or spiritual knowledge, whatever you want to call it, the same thing, can be received only through a teacher or a bona fide guru condition connected to a disciplic succession started by the Lord Himself. Very important point. Just like you don't get an engineering degree or become a doctor by reading a book at home, similarly, we cannot acquire spiritual knowledge by reading scriptures at our home. We need to have Guru. And this particular chapter of Bhagavad Gita really enforces this idea or the principle. So question arises, like sometimes people say that I don't need a guru. I can understand Bhagavad Gita by myself. Or really? Let me ask all of you. Let's begin with our first poll for today. Based on your experience, do you think it is possible? Oh, failed to launch polling. Okay, you are able to see the poll, right? Okay, great. The results are coming. So based on your experience, do you think it is possible to understand Bhagavad Gita without the guidance of bona fide guru or not? What do you think? However, there are people who think, I don't need help of anyone. I have the book, I can read the book and I can understand. Let's wait for a few seconds when all of you reply and let's see what all of you have to say. Okay. All right. Okay, sharing. Okay, good. Gaurav is handling that. Now, you look at it, I'm glad all of you agree. It's just not possible. Probably all of us have tried understanding Bhagavad Gita by ourselves, and it just doesn't make sense when we try to do it on ourselves. So, yeah, that's the point. So, in that case, someone may ask, what is the importance of parampara or disciplic succession? Well, it's very, very important. What is the importance of parampara or disciplic succession? Only author knows the real import of his writings. Thus, disciplic succession started by the author, which means Krishna himself, integrity of the original message spoken by the Lord himself. And second, it presents the teachings and the purpose of the Lord as it is without any dilution. And that's the importance of parampara. Apart from this, Srila Prabhupada explains how does the science works, which I already explained. In disciplic succession, the student is given the knowledge, he applies it, and then he shares it. It's just not a theoretical knowledge. And who can receive this knowledge? Lord Shri Krishna explains in the third verse, Bhakto Sime Sakha Cheti. Arjuna, I'm telling you because you are my devotee and a friend. It cannot be understood by an atheist who does not believe. Srila Prabhupada opens the Bhagavad Gita's introduction with the statement that Bhagavad Gita is meant for the devotees of the Lord, is meant for a faithful, not for a faithless. However, we can give the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita to faithless or to the atheist, presenting in a scientific manner with which they can develop faith on Bhagavad Gita. Then they could be brought into the detailed study of Bhagavad Gita. That's the reason we don't start with a detailed study of Bhagavad Gita, like verse by verse. We start with the courses. Let's say a 5-day Bhagavad Gita course, then maybe a course like this where you give an overview, and then we go into the detailed study so that a person's faith have been built up gradually. Now, what's the importance of disciplic succession? To give you an example, for an instance, Srila Prabhupada would explain that there are more than 700 commentaries of Bhagavad Gita that are available in the market. Unfortunately, majority of them, I'm not indicating to any of the versions which I've included here, is a generic statement I'm making. Majority of them would not even acknowledge the original author of Bhagavad Gita, that is Lord Krishna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They would give their own altered interpretations of Lord Shri Krishna's words. Most of these authors are conveying their opinion through Bhagavad Gita and actually use Bhagavad Gita's goodwill and popularity for their monetary gains. And the result is none of their readers, any one of them, hardly attain any of the desired objectives of Bhagavad Gita because the original message was never presented. Does anyone know what is the desired objective of Bhagavad Gita? You have a chat box, you can type in what is the conclusion, what is the objective of Bhagavad Gita? In the meantime, you reply, I'll proceed ahead. 1 second, please. Yeah. However, oh, screen got hang. Yes. However, if the original message of Bhagavad Gita is presented, it will bring worldwide revolution in the consciousness of humanity. This wisdom has the ability to eradicate all ills from our society, wherein hatred will be replaced by love, selfishness by compassion, arrogance by humility, and anger by kindness. Not only this, all kinds of racial, gender discrimination, religious fanaticism, animal farming, or the killing of innocent animals, all of it will cease to exist if people understand and study Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because as our scriptures explain, Vasudev Kutumbakam, which means every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. We all are spiritual beings undergoing bodily experience. And as soon as a child is born, we have discussed this point before, as soon as a child is born, the child is tagged with so many false identities like nationality, religion, gender. And on this basis, we divide the society on false identities. And we know that we have already discussed in second chapter, all these tags or identities exist only on the bodily platform. But once we understand our true identity, that I'm not the body, but a spirit soul, and everyone is my brother and sister, but naturally, all this hatred, all this envy, animosity would disappear, which exists today on this bodily identifications. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and a disciple and an Acharya in Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Parampara, proved the efficacy or the potency of Bhagavad Gita by presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is. His book, his commentary on Bhagavad Gita was titled as Bhagavad Gita as it is, which meant that the translations and the purports that I've given here on the verses of Bhagavad Gita indicate the message of Krishna as it is. And he created a society that we know today called as ISKCON, where the whole world of all diversity can come and live together and practice spirituality together. And today ISKCON, as most of you will be aware, is one of the international organization, very famous, very respected and reputed organization in the whole world, having more than around 1,000 centers all over the world. And this is the power of receiving spiritual knowledge through bona fide parampara, that even we have centers in Pakistan and China who are right now fighting or in the kind of a zone of fighting with India. That's the whole point. One man gave the message of Bhagavad Gita, and look about the transformation Prabhupada's commentary on Bhagavad Gita brought about, because Srila Prabhupada kept the theme, the ethos of the message of Bhagavad Gita as it is, what Lord Shri Krishna intended to be. So with that, let us move on to the discussion of spiritual knowledge. We just spoke about disciplic succession, and let's go to the discussion on spiritual knowledge. What is spiritual knowledge? Which has been elaborated in verses 5 to 10 of 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. In essence, spiritual knowledge means three things precisely, which is also called. First, knowledge about the self, who am I? Second, knowledge about the Supreme Lord and his opulences. And this is precisely, as I said, technically called as Sambandha Gyan. And in verses 5 to 10, Lord Shri Krishna elaborates about this knowledge. And the theme of this discussion is as follows, where Lord Shri Krishna speaks about his and Jiva's position, the Lord's activities, and the last is the result of understanding a Lord's position and activities. So because it's an important subject, I will go step by step and take all the three aspects of it. So let's begin with Lord Shri Krishna's position versus Jiva's position. Krishna, eternal and remembers, which means the discussion goes in 5th verse, where because Arjuna had asked Krishna, my dear Lord, how do I know, how do I believe that you gave this knowledge to Vivaswan, who appeared long, long ago before than you? And Krishna said, Arjuna, I am eternal, although you are also eternal. But I remember everything, past, present, future. I don't forget when I appear again and again, but you forget. So that's the Jiva. Like all of us, we don't remember what happened in our past lives, but we all are eternal. Lord Shri Krishna says in second chapter, 20th verse, Na jayate mriyate va kadachin, nayam bhutva bhavitva anabhuya. Lord Shri Krishna explains, Ajo nitya shashvato yam purano. So we are eternal, but being a jiva, we don't remember of the past lives. Second, Lord Shri Krishna says, I appear by my own sweet will. When I desire, I appear. But none of us, how many of you had appeared on your own will? You chose your date of birth and timing, and you decided to crash land on planet Earth, whichever place in India, America, wherever. Anyone? Well, if yes, then probably you are an eternal associate of Krishna. If not, welcome to the world of jivas. None of the jivas can do that. We are forced to take birth because of a karma. Karma deva netrena. That's what Kapila Muni tells to Madhu Devati. Third, Krishna says, I appear in my Satchitananda, spiritual form, spiritual body. However, all of us have got this gross body and a subtle body comprising of mind, intelligence, of possible. Fourth, there is no difference in Lord Shri Krishna's body and the self. Is all Satchitananda. But soul, which is Satchitananda, when it comes to this world, acquires a gross body. So there is a difference. And last, Krishna explains in this section that I remember all my births, avayam. However, you forget because of change of bodies. So the conclusion of this theme here is, which Lord Shri Krishna brings out, and Srila Prabhupada really brings out in his purport is, a jiva can never be Supreme Personality of Godhead. Give up this idea that I'll sit down in dhyana meditation every morning for 2 hours, every evening for 2 hours, and after 5 years of this practice of some mantra given by my guru, I will become Vishnu. That guru is just giving you a mantra, okay? He's just defrauding you, nothing else. It's just not possible. This is what Lord Shri Krishna explains here. The very important thing to understand who am I, who is Krishna. Next, what is the purpose of Krishna's descent? The very famous verses of Bhagavad Gita, 7th and 8th verse of 4th chapter. I believe all of you would know it. We can recite together. I have not put it for the purpose of keeping it concise. 4th chapter, 7th verse. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srajamiham, which describes the reason for Lord Shri Krishna descends. And Lord Shri Krishna says, whenever there's a decline in religion and rise in a religion, at that time I appear in this world. And what do? What are my activities? Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. To protect the devotees, to annihilate the demons, and to re-establish the principles of dharma. This is why I appear. And that is what we see in Mahabharata. Lord Shri Krishna, his appearance, cause of appearance was establishing dharma. And finally, when he had established Yudhishthira as a king, Lord Shri Krishna wounded up his pastimes and he went back to Goloka Vrindavan. And the last part of this discussion is, what is the result if someone understands Krishna's position and the purpose of Krishna's descent and his activities, which are both transcendental? Lord Shri Krishna says, the result of this transcendental knowledge is such, you will become purified, you will gain freedom from raga, attachment, bhaya, and krodha. You'll attain love for Godhead, and eventually you'll go back to Godhead, and you will have no more birth in this material world, which is always inflicted by three kaleshas, Adi Atmika, Adi Bhautika, Adi Daivika Kalesha. And with that, we conclude the first part of chapter 4, position of Lord Shri Krishna. To give you a summary of it, Krishna, in this section of chapter 4, explains how this eternal educational system was originally set up by him. The system perpetuates in the universe through qualified saintly persons who impart spiritual knowledge to the masses, in dynamic and relevant ways. Thus, Lord Shri Krishna says, this material creation is essentially a university wherein we rediscover our relationship with the Supreme Lord. And as the creator and maintainer of this universe, Lord Shri Krishna periodically appears in this world to re inject spirituality time and again, to remove materialistic influences, and the third, to ensure smooth functioning of this material creation. Let's move to the second part of this chapter, stands for where A, past, where A stands for applying transcendental knowledge. Now, application of transcendental knowledge, that's what precisely it is. A very, very important discussion once again. Most people know something about religion, yes, and something about God for sure. But their understanding can often be quite hazy and confusing. Of course, I don't have that privilege to interact with you freely on it, which I love to do it on this particular discussion, but let it be, so be it. However, when transcendental knowledge, that's what Lord Shri Krishna is trying to say here, when it is received through disciplic succession or through this eternal educational system or the university that Krishna have created of disciplic succession, one gains an accurate understanding of what life is, what is its purpose. And in the following three verses, Lord Shri Krishna clarifies some three common misunderstandings. And what are these three very common misunderstandings? These are these. And let's have a poll here and let's ask all of you what do you think about it. Oh, interesting. All three can come together. All right. So you have the poll in front of you where three questions are there. First, all paths lead to the same destination. What it means, where people believe that I can do anything. I can worship any devta, I can follow any style of spirituality, whatever I feel I can do it, and ultimately I will get the result. Anything you do, any way you practice spirituality, the result is you will gain love of Godhead. Is that really the case? Second, another misunderstanding, all demigods, all devtas, Brahma, Vishnu, Ganesh, Shiva, whatever, they all are same. There are no difference between them. And the third misconception, the caste system is very unfair and exploitative. And Lord Shri Krishna in verse number 11, 12, 13 clarifies these three misunderstandings. So let's see what you all think about it. Okay. So you can take a few more seconds while you vote in. So God provide lead for you to keep on looking at the poll and share the result. Give them some more time because there are three questions. I'll proceed ahead with the discussion because we have less time. Okay. So fine, we end the poll now and let's take a look at the results. So all paths lead to the same destination. Some say yes, majority say no. All demigods are different forms of the Lord. Looks like a big confusion. 40% people says yes, whereas 50%, 57 people say no. People say no. The caste system is fair and unexploited. Is fair and unfair and exploitative. It has got 50% vote. Yes, no. Okay. Thank you. So if you have seen the result, I guess it behooves us to have some discussion on this. And I'll start the discussion on this topic now. So let's take a first misconception, misunderstanding. All paths lead to the same destination. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam statheva jamiham mama vartmanu vartante manushya partha sarvashaha. Lord Shri Krishna says in 11th verse. In this text 11, Krishna explains, while there is unity in diversity, there are also different gradations of spiritual elevation. In other words, Lord is trying to say that I reciprocate and reveal according to the consciousness of the follower. As you approach me, ye yatha mam prapadyante, tams tathaiva bhajamiham. I reciprocate. So it is not that you may do anything and everything and you will get the same result. No. And Lord Shri Krishna further explains there are different destinations for different practitioners. Karmi approaches me for material desires, so he gets what he wants. Brahmavadi goes to Brahman, so he gets Brahman realization. Yogis, they perform their tapasya yagya for mystic powers, so they get mystic powers. Whereas bhaktas, they want to serve me, so they come to me. So it is not the same. Next, that resolves the first doubt. Let's go to the second misunderstanding. All demigods, uh, is the question, all demigods are different forms of the Lord? Yes or no? Well, in text 12, Krishna re-emphasizes the monotheistic stance. Vedic culture is not polytheistic, is monotheistic. And within that monotheism, there is polytheism. What does that mean? I don't want to go into too much technicalities, but making it simple, which means monotheistic means there is one supreme personality of Godhead. That is what Lord Shri Krishna makes a point through this text 12. So what are the devtas? Devtas are also part and parcel of the Lord, just like we Jivatma. Devtas are also Jivatmas, but they are invested with special powers of the Supreme Lord. That does not mean they become equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So now the question comes, okay, if that's the case, then my dear Lord, why do people worship devtas? And then Lord Shri Krishna explains why people worship devtas. The main reason is material desires. People want material desires, and for that they approach devtas and they get their desire fulfilled. So this is a question, this is a subject matter of yajna, which third chapter talks about it, which I didn't discuss yesterday because we couldn't have covered everything. So on the Thursday, when we have review session, that time I will elaborate on the yajna system. So I hope you all could attend that when we'll have on Thursday. So this is what, and this is how Lord Shri Krishna clarifies that I and Devtas are different. Let's go to the third contradiction or misunderstanding. Are caste system unfair or exploitative? Is a question being asked. Not at all. Not at all. The caste system or was never unfair or is never unfair and exploitative. Let me explain you. Hold on. To give you an example, just say let's say someone's marriage ends up in divorce because of whatever conflict the husband and wife had with each other. Because somebody's marriage ends in divorce, it will be unfair for all of us to claim marriage institution to be exploitative. Yes or no? Well, for everyone else is working out well. Maybe for some people it didn't work out well, and they're individually responsible for that scenario. Similarly, some leaders, for their selfish interest, misuse this Varna ashram system, which Lord Shri Krishna explains as the scientific division of society, which was designed by the Lord Himself. That's what Lord says here, to help us live happily and make spiritual progress. And the system, Lord Shri Krishna explains in text 13, that the criteria for division is according to one's acquired nature and karma, not based on birth. However, you look at the reality today. Unfortunately, qualifications based on birth have become a criteria today. I'll give you an example. Because of lack of implementation of the scientific division of society, if you think and reflect on the subject, you will realize that in fact people are suffering more, are getting exploited more. And today we have created a new division of society, which is a man-made system of division of society, which is not based on the science which is described here. Rather, it is based on one's faith and one's social status. What is one's faith? That is religion. So there is a division of society called as atheists who do not believe in God. Then there is a division of society called as religionists. Within that, there are a lot of divisions called as Hindus, Muslims, Sikh, Isai, whatnot. And also there is a division of society based on social status, poor class, middle class, rich class. Never ever such kind of divisions existed before. And because of this man-made divisions of the society, it had led to a far greater distress and social evils in the society, such as increased rate of divorces was never ever there in the history before. Suicides, abortions, terrorism, unemployment, and breakdown of traditional economy. With that, I will pause on this topic here. It is a very important discussion, but I would like you to think more about it, what I just said, and ask yourself, is the society today progressing with this man-made system of a division of society, or because of man-made division of society, there is much more exploitation? If yes, then you will understand Lord Shri Krishna's divine system better. And what and how it got spoiled, it was because of the selfish interest of some leaders. For that, we cannot blame the Lord Shri Krishna system. So, cultivating spiritual knowledge, in essence, is of utmost importance for one's own well being. Even theists, which means the believers, due to lack of proper spiritual knowledge, struggles with the basic questions of life, such as who am I? Why am I suffering? What is the purpose of my life? Who is the object of my real love? Why do bad things happen to good people? And so forth. So it's very important, as Krishna explains in the subject matter, that everyone should cultivate transcendental knowledge so that we can get freed from such kind of doubts. And here I have another poll for all of you, and that brings us to how many of you have attended ISKCON's 5-day course on Bhagavad Gita, like Journey of Self-Discovery or Discover Yourself, or else what we do is called as Gita Wisdom Course, which is based on 5 subject matters of Bhagavad Gita. Through this course, we clarify all the fundamental questions like who am I, what's the purpose of life, who is Krishna. And right now we're not going to details of this topic, we are giving you as per the flow of Bhagavad Gita, but in this set of courses we go in details about it. So let's take a look about what all do you poll here. Gaurav, you can manage, I'll proceed ahead, you can publish when it is ready. Thus Lord Shri Krishna, okay, oh interesting, more than 50%, 57% have not attended it. If in case you all would need it, it's a very important discussion. Maybe after this Bhagavad Gita course, we can have this course for all of you. Or else if you want, if you go on our Evolve Pune YouTube channel, there's a playlist called as Gita Wisdom. You will get all the videos of these 5 subjects of Bhagavad Gita, which will help you clarify many fundamental doubts. Okay, so we'll proceed ahead now. So that's what Lord Shri Krishna says about the importance of cultivating spiritual knowledge. So while spiritual knowledge helps one to clear up philosophical doubts, it also helps one clear up their karmic bank balance. And it brings us to a discussion of karma. From verse number 16 to 24, Lord Shri Krishna now begins to speak about karma. What is karma? To tell you precisely, karma is a universal law of nature. In just for every action, there is a reaction. And Lord Shri Krishna explains that it is of 3 kinds: vikarma, karma, and akarma. Vikarma refers to sinful activities, karma refers to pious activities, and akarma refers to activities which are done as a service for Lord. And I'll give you more explanation for it. Let's take a look at the table. As you can see, for whom vikarma, both vikarma and karma are done for one's own gain, interest, whereas akarma, the object of the action is for the pleasure of the Lord. What is the attitude of a worker? One who is performing vikarma, which means sinful activity, he goes against the Vedic scriptures. He doesn't believe in Vedic injunctions. Whereas who is performing karma, he acts according to the injunctions of scriptures. And what is the attitude of a performer who is doing a karma? There is no desire for sense gratification. And what's the result? The result for that who's performing vikarma is sinful reactions. And one who performs pious activities, he gets good reactions. And one, the worker or performer who works for the pleasure of Lord, he gets transcendental happiness. So what does it mean? Vikarma and karma, Lord Shri Krishna explains. While bad karma is obviously undesirable, but Krishna explains that even good karma is undesirable and should be avoided, because good karma also binds us to this world. And for us to reap the results of our good activities, a person has to take birth again in this world. But beyond this good and bad karma, Lord Shri Krishna introduces a karma, where activities are performed on the spiritual level, which yields no reaction and ultimately frees one from the anxieties and entanglements of this world, which is karma yoga, which Lord Shri Krishna is asking Arjuna to take on, to perform, and which is also called as akarma. When Arjuna heard this, he pondered on it and he thought for a second, and he had a question in mind. And he thought that how a transcendental worker or a devotee works. In other words, he wanted an explanation. How does this karma is performed? How does it happens? And then Lord Shri Krishna explains that in verses 19 to 24, where I'll give you the gist of this topic. Giving up of work is easy, isn't it? That's what Arjuna wanted. But Krishna tells Arjuna to give up the fruits of work. And that is what akarma means, where you engage your prana, artha, dhiya, vacha, everything in the service of the Lord. So how does a devotee acts? Devotee acts, but he does not have any selfish interest. Thus, while performing service, he does not get any reaction. And now Lord Shri Krishna speaks about a pretender, whereas a pretender who has taken to the path of renunciation has a strong fruitive mentality, and thus while performing his activities, even in the path of renunciation, he gets a reaction because he is not serving, is not performing it for Supreme Lord, but for his selfish interest. Thus Lord Shri Krishna says, hey Arjuna, work in Krishna consciousness is better than improper renunciation. So please make your choice wisely. Arjuna was very satisfied with the answer and he thought further. And then a question came to the mind of Arjuna. My dear Lord, how do I understand and realize transcendental knowledge? And this brings us to the third section of chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, where S stands for sacrifices leads to transcendental knowledge. In other words, cultivating spiritual knowledge requires a sacrifice. What is sacrifice? Sacrifice is not, sacrifice has another connotation in English, but what sacrifice means is yajna. That's what actual meaning that Sanskrit being used. Yajna. Yajna refers to sacrifice. Now, Krishna says, if you want to cultivate this spiritual knowledge, you have to perform yajna. Why yajna? What's the importance of yajna sacrifice? Lord explains, sacrifices helps one refines one's character so that they become eligible to acquire this knowledge. An important point to consider here, material knowledge is dependent on one's caliber, whereas spiritual knowledge is dependent on one's character. And our character becomes refined when we perform yajna or sacrifices recommended in the scriptures, as Lord Shri Krishna is going to speak about. So here in this section of verses, Lord Shri Krishna speaks about various yajnas or sacrifices as per the nature of the worker or performer. And he speaks as follows. From verse number 26 to 29, Krishna speaks about for a brahmachari should dedicate, should sacrifice his ability to hear or his ears in the fire of transcendental knowledge, which means he should use his hearing ability to cultivate knowledge about absolute truth and not anything else. And then should control his mind and senses. Whereas for a grahastha, he is given much more leeway, much more concession than brahmachari. It is not so rigid for him. Where a grahastha, he can perform regulated family life. He has more opportunity and engagements for sense gratification, but in a regulated manner. And where one very important sacrifice or yajna for a grahastha, which is prescribed, is charity, charity of their wealth and possessions to assist the service of the Lord. And like this, Lord Shri Krishna further goes ahead and speaks about for the yogis, how austerities and breath control, and and for other performers like Tapomaya Yajna, Swadhyaya Yajna, for different people based on their nature, different kind of yajnas are prescribed. The essence, the essence of the subject is that everyone has to perform yajna according to one's position, and the aim of yajna or sacrifice should be to gain transcendental knowledge and develop devotional service. In fact, in the 31st verse, Lord Shri Krishna says, no sacrifice, no happiness. If you don't perform yajna, you can never find happiness in your life. And not only this, verse number 30, prior to this 31 verse, Lord Shri Krishna says, when a person engages in yajna, or sacrifices according to his position, that's how the person gains freedom from sinful reactions. Listening to this, Arjuna nods his head. He said, okay, my dear Lord, I understood. But a question comes in the mind of Arjuna. How do I know what sacrifice I'm supposed to do? Do you all agree? Yes or no? I didn't have a poll here, but okay, my Lord, you're saying you have to do yajna, but what sacrifice am I supposed to do? What is meant for my nature? I don't know anything about it. And this brings us to the last section of chapter 4, PAST, where T stands for process of transcendental knowledge, from verse number 34 to verse number 42. Here, Krishna explains that one of the biggest sacrifices is to relinquish, is to give up one's pride by humbly submitting oneself before the bona fide Guru. And therefore, Lord Shri Krishna starts this section speaking verse number 34, where he explains the importance of submitting oneself to a bona fide Guru. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam nani nastatvadarshina. Tad. I'll take a minute or two to explain this very important verse. Let's go word by word. Tad. Srila Prabhupada translate, that knowledge of different sacrifices, vidhi, you will know how pranipatena, by approaching a bona fide guru, pariprashnena, by making a submissive inquiry, sevaya, very important, by rendering service unto him, upadekshanti, that tattva darshina, that bona fide guru who knows the absolute truth, upadekshanti te jnanam, he will initiate you into knowledge, which means he will give you the wisdom. But what is required? Submissive attitude, in other words, submissive inquiry and service attitude. Two important things: submissive inquiry and service attitude. Inquiry is very important because when a person makes an inquiry, that helps build a relationship between the teacher and a student. If a student never asks a question, then there is no meaning of relationship between teacher and a student. So inquiry is must, but it should not be in a challenging spirit. And second, service. There should be some reciprocation by the student towards the teacher. There has to be some service standard. If not, then the knowledge transmission does not take place successfully. And next, Lord Shri Krishna speaks about the glories of this transcendental knowledge in verses 35 to 38. Where Krishna says, when this interaction have happened successfully between the Tattva Darshina and a disciple, then the disciple gets this transcendental knowledge. And what are the glories? When a disciple gets the knowledge, he never falls down. He can cross over the ocean of material existence and the miseries. This knowledge destroys all sinful reactions, and the end result is love of Godhead. And then Lord Shri Krishna says, but not everyone is qualified to receive this. Even if a person approaches a bona fide guru, still, if a person does not pay attention to what Krishna is about to say here, the transmission of knowledge would not be successful. So Lord Shri Krishna says, for whom it is successful and for whom it fails. A very important discussion again. The Krishna says, if a disciple is faithful, if he has faith in the message of the Lord, faith in the message of the Guru, if he's dedicated and he's able to control his mind and senses, then the transmission of this transcendental knowledge happens successfully. To give an example, let's say you go to a doctor, he diagnoses you with some illness, and he gives you a prescription. You take the prescription. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to go to the clinic, pharmacy, buy a medicine, and take a medicine. But if you don't do so, would you get treated? That the problem is not with the doctor. The problem is you did not practice. So the idea of service attitude, the idea of a submissive inquiry is to follow what Guru says. But if you don't apply that, we doubt, we have our own plans, our own whims, then the transmission and transformation of heart does not take place. Therefore, Krishna says in 40th verse, those who are ignorant, those who are faithless, those who doubt revealed scriptures, they may come very close to Krishna consciousness, they may come in the association of devotees, they may stay in the association of devotees, but because of their doubt, because of their arrogance, because of their pride and lack of humility and attachment to sinful activities or sinful life, they walk away from Krishna consciousness. Such people put selective faith. They put faith according to what is comfortable to them, and what is not comfortable or what is not acceptable to their mind, they don't accept it. And such people never succeed in this path. So here's my question to all of you. How many of you, if in case you have been connected to Krishna consciousness for some time, how many of you have seen people who come, stay for a while, become very excited, but after a while they disappear, never to be seen before? Have you had that experiences? Yes or no? Now you know the answer why. If in case you have seen people who stayed for a while but never turned back again and they disappear because of the 40th verse, Krishna gives the reasons, because they are faithless and the doubtful soul. Finally, Lord Shri Krishna speaks and concludes with the symptoms of success. How do we know where the transmission of this knowledge have happened successfully? If this transmission of knowledge has happened successfully, the transformation would happen, which would mean the person will not desire any fruitive activities or the results for it. He will have no doubts. He's convinced about spiritual wisdom. And thirdly, he knows I am eternal part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and I should engage in his service and use my prana, artha, diya, vacha as a service of the Lord, as a yajna or sacrifice. Finally, Lord Shri Krishna concludes chapter 4, and we will also conclude, fortunately, 2 minutes before time, so I'm happy about it. I was thinking maybe I'll get late discussing this chapter, but good. Therefore, the Lord Shri Krishna concludes where he says, hey Arjuna, armed with yoga, stand and fight. What yoga? Karma yoga. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. And armed with this yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. With that, Lord Shri Krishna concludes chapter 4, where he reiterates the importance of performing karma yoga or akarma, or buddhi yoga, bhakti yoga. These are just one or other names of the same process or activity, which aims at pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead and giving us the love of Godhead. So with that, we conclude chapter 4. And because I have a 1 minute here, so I'll take that 1 minute also to ask a question to all of you here. And here is a question for all of you. If a child asks to you, there are so many self-appointed teachers of Bhagavad Gita. How do I know who is the most authorized proponent of the teachings of Lord Krishna? Let's say your son, daughter, or maybe somebody comes and asks you, there are so many people teaching Bhagavad Gita. How do I know who is the most authorized? What will be your answer? You can use a chat box. We have already answered this in this chapter, in this discussion. How do you find out who is authorized, who is bona fide guru, who is bona fide teacher? Please take a chat box, use a chat box feature and type in your answer. And the second question, how would you answer the following? A friend asks to you, let's say, I am unable to understand and appreciate Bhagavad Gita as all of you. What am I lacking? So what will you tell him? What is he lacking? He's not able to understand and appreciate as all of you are able to do it. What is he lacking? Again, use a chat box. You can think about it and you can answer it. And if at the end of the session, I can give you the answer for both the questions. So with that, we thank you all for attending our this today's session on chapter 4. Next weekend, when we begin our discussion, we'll be speaking about chapter 5. So if everything is done, what is the need for chapter 5? Krishna already said, Arjuna, now you fight. However, Arjuna is still not very clear. And he's going to ask again a question to Lord Shri Krishna. So let me just give you a brief about Arjuna's understanding up to this point. Arjuna thinks at this point of time that renunciation in knowledge means that one should give up all his activities. Still, he thinks renunciation means give up all activities. But Arjuna is confused. Krishna is saying perform devotional service. If I perform devotional service, then how would my work stop? And if I'm doing work, I will get reaction. So he has not understood the concept of karma. Karma, karma, vikarma. He's confused about it. So to him, at this point of time, work and renunciation seems incompatible. Precisely, he has not understood akarma, that you can engage, yet you will not get reaction. Therefore, chapter 5 opens with Arjuna's question, similar to the question that he asked in chapter 3, which is better, my dear Lord, work in devotion or renunciation of work? And in chapter 5, Krishna will answer Arjuna's question and will explain the whole process in far much more details. That we'll see next week. With that, we conclude here. And here we have a last poll for all of you. And that is about the timing. Because today I have concluded our Mahabharata series of talks. So now I am available before 7:30 time slot. So just want to ask your preference, how many of you would prefer any of these timings? Because in the beginning, many people had suggested that they would prefer before 7 or 7:30, because 7:30 is a dinner time. And I believe many of the mothers and families are having dinner. So that's the point here. So please do reply, okay? Otherwise, if you don't reply, you give me the authority to make a call. And I would prefer 6 to 7 because that's a halfway. So you're free after 7 o'clock to prepare your dinner and do everything. I guess, Gaurav, we could have had one more option here. Fine with all the timings. Because if people have to choose like that, okay.
Yeah, but for that fourth option, then it's fine. Whatever the first three, they're okay with that.
Okay, so you manage it. You manage the poll at your side, all right?
Yeah.
So I'll give you the quick answer of the question that I raised, and then we'll take questions from you. So this was the first question. How do we know who is bona fide? Well, if that person is coming in bona fide Guru Parampara, and there are 4 paramparas, authorized paramparas: Brahma, Madhava, Gaudya Parampara, Shri Parampara, Rudra Parampara, and Kumar Parampara. Like this, we have 4 paramparas. If he is coming to any of the paramparas started by the Lord, it can be taken for yes, he is bona fide. How would you answer this question? How I'm not able to understand Bhagavad Gita as you all? You have to tell him to start attending Gita Essence or Bhagavad Gita classes elsewhere, anywhere. Don't try to study by yourself because you cannot understand if you study by yourself. And that's the point about it. So here we conclude for at our site. So Gaurav, please announce the result of the poll.
Yeah, Prabhu, I just announced. You can see
So,
it.
okay, let's have a gallery view. Can I request everyone switch on that camera now? So just let me ask you straightforward. This is a question particularly to those who have said 7 to 8. Are you saying that you are not available 6 to 7? Because many had earlier said 6 to 7. So let me put it this way straightforward. Are you all fine if we have 6 to 7 or anyone has a serious concern? Are you fine with the 6 to 7 timing? Because there are many other devotees who had that concern, and so we can accommodate them also. If anyone has a serious concern, say write in, or else you can send a message to me directly. So far it doesn't looks like everyone is fine. All right. Gaurav, back to you. Any questions for me from the audience? They may.
Yes, Prabhu. Let me check because there are a lot of answers for your questions.
In
Yeah,
case somebody wants to ask, they can raise their hand so Gaurav can see on the screen.
yeah. Vinayak Prabhu is the one who's raising the hand. Prabhu, you can unmute and ask the question. Prabhu, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. Okay. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Onwards.
Prabhuji, regarding the Varnashrama thing, I have a small doubt. Regarding the great personalities like Vidura and Sanjaya. Sanjaya and Vidura are, we can say Vidura is highly qualified Vaishnava and Sanjaya is also highly qualified Vaishnava. But Sanjaya stayed as a chariot driver to Dhritarashtra, who is very down, fallen
Okay.
person.
So
So
your
why he
question
has
is,
not considered?
yeah, why Dhritarashtra was made a king, not Vidura, something like that?
One question is that, and why Sanjaya, being a great Vaishnava and versed in and what to say, Shishya of Vyasadev, very high qualified, still he has been treated as a chariot driver.
No, so being a chariot driver is not an insult. In Varnashrama, you can be on any role. It doesn't make you inferior and superior. That's the first
He
thing.
come, but chariot driver comes under Sudra or something, na?
Yeah, so being a Shudra in Varnashram culture, when it was practiced, it was not considered an insult. The Varnashram dharma was categorized in a way.
Sabji, you are not audible.
Yes, seems to be some issue there.
Okay.
So he will connect in a minute. Meantime, anyone else who has any query, so you can type in the chat box. We can read it through when Prabhuji rejoins.
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Am I audible?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, the first thing, the Varnashram dharma, the idea was the performer, whatever Varna he would choose, was according to his nature, and he was totally happy in it. Regarding somebody inferior and superior, that is always there. The hierarchies are always there. So for Sanjay, that was the best thing that he felt most comfortable, and he was for it. Now, regarding Vidura and Dhritarashtra, Vidura was more qualified. Everyone knew. When Pandu left, so Vidura could have been, but you have to understand it was Dwapar Yuga, and I mentioned this point yesterday also. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Others can go on mute, please.
Hare Krishna. So just like I mentioned yesterday, okay. Until Dwapar Yuga, even birth had a lot of weightage in deciding your varna and ashrama. Because I was saying yesterday, they maintained the breed accordingly. So that's how Dhritarashtra, being born to Ambika and Ambika, I believe, or Ambalika, either of it, by default was given more preference over Vidura, who was born of a Dasi. That's the whole thing. However, in Kali Yuga, because now the Varnashram, and in fact, Kali Yuga, it is said everyone born is born as a Shudra because nobody follows Garbha and Samskara. So here in Kali Yuga, to decide or to say somebody he's a Brahmana or a Kshatriya because of his birth, because of his kula, is totally wrong. Because the parents themselves have not followed any of the rules and regulations. And in Kali Yuga, this is prohibited. So at least in Kali Yuga, is very clearly mentioned, it is according to one's activities. Until Dwapara Yuga, it was different because of the different time. Okay? Gaurav,
Hare
next.
Krishna. Prabhu, one question from Ritika Mataji. She's asking, are demigods Shaktavesha avatar?
Oh, Shaktya Vesha Avatar, these are different expansions of the Lord. They're like Leela Avatar, Purusha Avatar, Shakti Avatar. So Shakti Avatar refers to a specifically empowered person. Just like, Vyasdev is said to be Shakti Vesha Avatar, who was empowered by the Lord to write all these vast scriptures. So Devtas do not come into that category. I mean, because they are empowered, they're jivatmas, they're empowered to carry out certain work, but they don't come into that category as such in general. Of course, technically it seems like that because they're empowered incarnate, they're empowered representatives. They're not called as incarnations. So Shaktya and avatar, when avatar word is used, which means the Lord has expanded himself. He has incarnated. In the case of Devtas, that's not the case. So they are the representatives of the Lord, empowered representatives. That's how it is defined. Next, Gaurav.
This is from Yoga. They wanted to know, is Varna means caste system or both are completely different?
Is a Varna means caste system? I mean, that's how it has, that's how we call it today as a caste system. Today the caste, for example, Goswami has become a caste today. Chaturvedi has become a caste today. Chaturvedi was never Ram, 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 Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu, audible.
Yeah, sorry. In Pune right now it's raining heavily, so light is going on and off. So I was saying, Goswami, Chaturvedi, Trivedi, Dvedi, they all have become caste, but it was never a caste before. So today, what is caste system? As God only knows, is too complicated. But that's how the Varna system got contaminated to what we call as caste system. But if you translate Varna system, Varnashram system in English language, it will be called as a caste system where you have 4 Varnas: Brahmanas, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Not like what we have today. So many branches and sub-branches of it. All right, next, Gaurav.
Next is from Rajesh Prabhu. Rajesh Prabhu, you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Thank you, sir. Prabhuji, I have one question. Why, rather 2 questions. Whenever, I read through Gita, it says about, God again reappearing when to restore order, to bring about corrections and to bring people back to Godhead. But what clearly puts me through, what I fail to get an answer is, why is God waiting for so much when we look at around in our present day history and in our present time, there is so much of disorder. So do you think why would God still choose to stay back and not appear now to bring some sort
Okay,
of order?
good. Thank you.
I have one more question.
Can I answer this and go to the second? Rajesh, can I answer this?
Yes.
Yes. So just like, when Krishna was present personally during the time of Mahabharata, even many people, despite Krishna's being personally present, did not understood that Lord Shri Krishna has appeared and was not willing to follow Shri Krishna's instruction. Today, just before in the last session, before the war that we concluded in Mahabharata, we were speaking about how Krishna had approached Karna, and Karna did not follow Krishna's instruction of changing his side from Kauravas to Pandavas. So ultimately, what happens around is what we are responsible. Now, in today's context, to say Krishna is not there, no, Krishna is very much present. Krishna is present through Bhagavad Gita. And those who are practicing, those who have put faith in the instructions of Lord Shri Krishna, those who are following the teachings of Lord Shri Krishna, they're immune to the troubles, to the challenges which are faced by an ordinary person that has been created by his own actions. Lord Shri Krishna is very much present today in the form of holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Shri Krishna is very much present in his temples, in the association of devotees. I would say it is up to you. If you recognize presence of Krishna, it is up to you. You want to act like Arjuna, where Arjuna was in confusion and he surrendered to Krishna and he followed the advice of Krishna, or else we want to act like Karna, where Karna knew Krishna is a supreme Lord, yet he did not follow Krishna's instruction. So it ultimately boils down to what we want, and accordingly things manifest. Next question, Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhu, you have two questions, Rajesh Prabhu, but both are answered.
He is muted. I've given him like unmute. It'll be nice if I can see the person who is asking. It helps me to relate and speak up.
Yes.
Yes. Yes,
Sorry, I
Rajesh.
have slightly technical issues. Sir, Prabhuji, another thing, I mean, how can, would it not be nice if we can have, the process of finding a true guru can be explained in with more detail? Because I think
Correct.
the most important point for people to really grasp this knowledge and to use it into their daily day-to-day life and to find success, rightly said in the teachings that you need to find a guru. How can we go about, giving more information as to how people can actually reach to that point of finding the real guru?
Good question, Rajesh. So what we are doing here is giving you overview to invoke your interest in the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, to spike up your interest and to give you an idea and overview and understanding that Bhagavad Gita is actually the best self-help book by bringing out different aspects of it. What a question you have asked is brings about discussion on themes of Bhagavad Gita. So, however, that was not, I'm going to say, like disciplic succession, you might have noticed that I had spent considerable time about it. Although there were just 2, 3 verses, but I spent considerable, maybe 5, 10 minutes on it because it's a very important subject. Of course, Guru is also a very important theme. I can make a note of it. And also, if in case others have other questions like this, post this course, we can have dedicated sessions and discussions on such kind of themes that you're bringing out. How to find a guru? Somebody has some other question which needs more elaboration, detailed study. We'll have a session on that, and that is called as a thematic study of Bhagavad Gita. So that will do it. Post this course, once your faith develops on the message of Bhagavad Gita. So I'm just giving you a 1 hour dosage, let's say on weekends, so 2 hours on and off. But rest of the week, I expect you to study Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, read the purports, because I'm not going through purports right now. I'm just walking you through with the translations that Prabhupada have given and helping you understand it. But if you can study Prabhupada Bhagavad Gita when we're going through this course, you will gain a lot. You'll find the answers to your question by itself in Prabhupada's purports. But yet, we can always have this topics of discussion post this course. All right, Rajesh?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. The next question is from Harsh Mutha. He's asking, Lord is so transcendental. Why are his energies material and devouring?
Lord has both. Even his material energy is transcendental. Lord Shri Krishna says in 7th chapter, 14th verse, Devi hi eshu gunamai mamamaya duratya. Devi, the Devi is represented as transcendental energy. The Lord Shri Krishna's energy is also transcendental. It becomes material and devouring for those who act like Ravana. Mother Sita is always auspicious. She is Lakshmi.
Yeah.
And all of us celebrate Diwali, windows and doors for Mother Lakshmi to enter. How come Mother Lakshmi be ever inauspicious? But that same Mother Lakshmi became source of destruction of Ravana. Because Ravana wanted to exploit Sita. So similarly, Lord Shri Krishna's energy are always divine. But when we want to exploit Lord Shri Krishna and Krishna's energies, then they become all devouring or destructive for us.
Okay.
And that is also kindness of the Lord. It is like a loving mother who slaps a child just to remind him you're doing wrong. So that destructive energy of the Lord is also just a mild slap to the child. You're going on the wrong track. You're not supposed to exploit. You're supposed to cooperate. And that's the point. Okay, Harsh?
I have one more question.
Harsh, Prabhu, I'll come back. Let us take one question from everyone. Then I'll come to you for second question. All right?
Oh, okay.
Next,
Thank you.
next question
Hare
is
Krishna.
next question is from Suresh Bansal Prabhu from YouTube. Why Arjuna was chosen to deliver the knowledge and not Yudhishthir Maharaj?
Fourth chapter, third verse, Krishna says to Arjuna, Bhakto si me sakha cheti. You are my devotee and a very, very dear friend. Lord Shri Krishna answers why he chose Arjuna. Next,
Okay, Prabhu. Okay. Yeah, the next is from Deepak Chadda Prabhu. He's asking, that's different question, but yes, if Diksha is necessary or mandatory, if someone is following the regulative principles like chanting 16 rounds and also following Shiksha Guru instructions.
so is Diksha necessary? Yes, absolutely necessary. For at least for us in the conditioned state, Diksha is a process of taking a commitment and a vow. The vow that I will follow this spiritual practice rest of my life. And that commitment ties our brain. In other words, that commitment regulates our mind and senses. When there is no commitment, when there is no vow, when there is no vow taken in front of the guru, taken in front of the devotees, taken in front of the fire, Agni Devta, and like that, then our mind may cheat us tomorrow, saying that, okay, what's the problem if I don't chant 16 today? I can always chant tomorrow. What if I don't follow regular principles today? I can always do it tomorrow. So initiation is very important. It binds you in a legal contract with the guru, where guru says, I'm taking your responsibility to take you back to Godhead. And disciple says, I'm willing to follow whatever you say, my dear Guru. So it's an important aspect which scripture says that we should take initiation. We should do that. That helps us to become progressive.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Next question is from Rati Mataji. Rati Mataji, are you there? You can unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay. I think it seems that she dropped from the session. Okay. There's no other question on the chat box. If there's anyone who is having any query, then they can raise their hand or unmute and then ask the question. Yes, Trahan Mataji, yes, you can unmute yourself. Mataji, we are not able to hear you.
Okay, I am audible now.
Yes, Mataji.
प्रणाम प्रभु जी। प्रभु जी मुझे ना बहुत कम समझ में आ रहा है सब कुछ, पता नहीं ऐसे क्यों, पर मुझे बहुत कम समझ में आ रहा है।
I mean, this is a little fast because we're going a little quick rather than going slow verse by verse. That can make it a little difficult. But if you want to understand it more, as I said, please read Prabhupada Bhagavad Gita. For example, we discussed chapter 4 today. Read out the purport. The message of Bhagavad Gita is not that very easy to understand and grasp. And this particular chapter 4 is very, very difficult. Lord Shri Krishna speaks about karma, which he says is very intricate. Or either be third chapter and whatnot. And other chapters ahead also going to become a little complicated. We're still able to speak and discuss something because Srila Prabhupada made it so simple for us. So we need to repeatedly hear it and then we get it. It's not, Lord Shri Krishna says this wisdom is Rajavidya Rajaguyam. It is not meant for an ordinary person. Only a very intelligent people can only understand it. Even in this fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says this is meant for saintly kings. And Prabhupada explains in the purport of the 4.1, I believe, where verse 1 is mentioned, that this knowledge was meant for highly elevated people because they can only understand it, and they would protect the citizens by establishing the Varnashrama Dharma. So to think that I just hear it once and I'll get it, all the best. It's just not going to happen. So don't be discouraged. That's what I meant to say. Don't think that, oh, I'm not getting it. Of course, maybe I'm not that well able to explain you. That could be for sure. But Bhagavad Gita takes time and effort, and it needs sincerity of heart, a prayerful heart, where we pray to the Lord to help us understand. And at my side, whatever I can try, I can try.
थैंक यू प्रभु जी जैसे घर में डेली मतलब नॉर्मल लाइफ में हमारे साथ कुछ ना कुछ सिचुएशन होती ही रहती है तो हर वक्त मतलब अपने आप को ओवरकम कैसे करना चाहिए मतलब मैं तो बहुत वीक पढ़ रहा हूँ मतलब मुझे नहीं पता क्या पता वो सब नॉर्मल चीज ही हो मुझे ऐसे लग रहा हो कि बहुत मुश्किल है
Life means struggles, and struggles are there for everyone. For one, struggle becomes a roadblock, a kind of a wall, which blocks his progress, whereas for others, struggles becomes a stepping stone. So what you need to begin with is to change your attitude towards the challenges or struggles. See that as an opportunity for you to grow. Like we were describing, this world or this universe is a university, a university which is meant to teach us. So whatever happens here is kind of a lesson for us to learn and grow. So take it in that way. When you change this paradigm of your consciousness, where you take it as an opportunity to learn and grow in every situation, by simultaneously taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the means of chanting of the holy names of the Lord, then Krishna, which he will explain in 15th chapter, Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sannivishto, Matha Smriti Jnanam Apohanam Cha. I am residing in the heart of every living entity. From me comes forgetfulness, knowledge, and ignorance, wisdom, not ignorance. Smriti Jnanam Apohanam Cha. Yes, Smriti, remembrance, Jnanam, knowledge, Apohanam, ignorance, or forgetfulness. So when we connect our relationship with the Lord is already there in the heart of every living entity. When we build up a relationship with Him through this process of chanting of the holy names of the Lord, then Krishna will give you the wisdom from within, how to respond to situations which you think challenging today. And who doesn't have challenges? I believe in one of the sessions I was saying, please read about Mother Kunti.
Mother Kunti, yes.
Okay, then you will feel like, oh, I'm having a very rosy life. Challenges meant Mother Kunti. We can draw many lessons, particularly for mothers, very wonderful role model. Of course, for men also, for brahmacharis, grasta, whoever, she's an incredible role model, no doubt about it. But I'm just saying because you can psychologically relate to her, being a mother, being a wife, being a daughter, because that's what Mother Kunti played all those roles. She was a daughter, she was a mother, she was a wife, she was a mother-in-law. All those roles she had played. She was a grandmother who lost all her grandsons.
Yeah.
She had played all those roles. She was great-great-grandmother also, who had lost the sons, the sons of the sons also like that. So the mothers can relate to her in that way. All right?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. I cannot see any other query or question in the chat box.
All right. So thank you all for joining us for this discussion. So from next weekend onward, we'll be meeting at 6 o'clock. And just before we sign out, you all have the ability to switch on your camera. I just want to see the students to whom I've been interacting and speaking to. So just get an idea, who are the people who I'm speaking to all this while? Otherwise, it's just like speaking to the screen here. So rest of you are not so shy or not in an uncomfortable situation, then you may just switch on your camera. I hope I'm not disturbing your dinner right now. In case if you're having your dinner, don't get worried. You don't have to switch on your camera. Anyways, next week on we'll change the timings of it. Okay. So we see Ranjita here, our Prahlad Anirudh, right? Anirudh? Prahlad. Okay. Darsh is there. Madachaya, Ishwarya, Manali. Okay. And maybe others are Dipali, Shrestha, Arvind is there. Okay. Great. All right. Thank you all. Hare Krishna. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. And we'll send you the quiz for third and fourth chapters soon, maybe tomorrow. For something for you to work on. Hare Krishna. All right, Gaurav.
Yes. Hare Krishna, Ram.